have a document. You either have one from me or the one from David, which are closely related. Now, I want to start out by saying this. I don't want to come across as paranoid about these subjects. I'm quick to say that all of us, may I have your attention, everybody? I'm quick to say that all of us have had it very good all of our lives. Unlike many people of the billions of people on earth, we have had it nice. We have had the ultimate freedom um, and prosperity, peace and plenty. We've been able to pretty much purchase whatever we need and almost everything we want. It has been very nice. We're healthy people. And unlike lots of millions of people throughout the world. Therefore, somebody could say, don't pay attention to all this that's in print because we've got it very nice and it's likely to continue for the next 60 years, just good like it is now. And now, Nancy and I have been home from our mission for 17 years, and it's gone by very quickly. Our mission in Kentucky has gone by so quickly. And if I live for another 17 years, I'll be 99 years old. I don't know if I'll make it that long. So we try to prepare ourselves. Now look, at the very bottom of your page, if it's the one from David, and if it's the one from me, it's also at the bottom. Nancy and I watched an interview recently on TV, and the interviewee, one being interviewed, was a very renowned individual who was familiar with global events, familiar with international affairs, and he was being interviewed. The interviewer asked him, as per the bottom of your page, is there any of you who do not have that? The interviewer asked him, who is our greatest enemy, our greatest threat right now? And his answer, and so the interviewee said, first, China. Second, he didn't say Russia, nor Iran, nor North Korea. He said, United States, us. So is that true? Was he right? Is he correct? And if so, if we're a threat to ourselves, how can that be so? So as we go through this, you might give a little bit of thought to see if we're okay. So in view of the fact that I've said that we have prospered in this land so much, is there really any need for any concern about these subjects? Do we need to give even a little bit of concern about these? So we start with very number one. Now, 3 of these are going to just take a few moments. The first one is the one of them, food and water and other essentials. We're not going to spend much time on that because we have done so much in the past on that subject. And every one of us know we better be prepared for hard times when it comes to the essentials that we need to store away. We're not going to spend much time on that. I will just say this, and then I think Esther has a little bleep that she's going to share on that. I will say this. If we run out of gasoline and can't drive a car, we can survive as our great-grandparents did 150 years ago. If we run out of electricity or power on account of, say, a cyber attack and no cell phones or computers, we can be okay as our great-grandparents were 150 years ago. But if you run out of food or water, it's doomsday for you. And so make sure that we're prepared on that item number 1, food and water and essentials. I will repeat again, as I've told you before, Nancy and I have supplies to carry the whole family for a long time at our place, and we invite you to come and get it. It cost us a bit of money over the years. It's free to you. It's getting older every year. But, Nancy, dear, tell them about my brother Bob Packard's wife, Talmadge, and how she's handling the same stuff that's many years even older than ours. Real loudly. And she still uses it, right? She uses it. All right, thank you very much. Esther, where are you? You shared that little bit you shared with me. Thank you. Thank you so much. I told you that there's about, I told you, should I take this thing off? Something's wrong.
No, that was me testing things, Dad.
Okay.
Just right, have it one thumb away from your cheek and you're good.
Okay. I told you that there's 2 or 3 items on this page that we won't spend much time on. That's one. It's done number 1. Another one that we will not is spiritual preparation. I've already told you, we've been doing that for years. We keep doing it. We don't need to have a big hour-long spiritual discussion on spiritual preparation. I just will say this. I already told you, if I live as long as we have been home from our mission, I'll be about 99. I don't think I'll make it. So it'd do me good to prepare to meet my Maker, repent of my sins, clean myself up as best I can, because life is real short. Every one of us better do that. And the other one that we won't spend much time on is number 8 there, the pandemic sickness. We've been studying that for 2 years now, 3 years, been living in it. All I say on the pandemic is take your medicine and hunker down in your homes. Okay. Is David Packard on the machine? Yes. David, are you, David, ready to address us concerning cyber attack?
Not so much on the cyber attack. I spent more of my time on the nuclear attack. The cyber attack, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and go into the nuclear attack. That's item number 7. The nuclear attack, is there a nuclear window? Do we have any concern at all about it? Because I'm sure you already know that Putin of Russia already threatened us with nuclear weapons. He used the words nuclear weapons. We know that North Korea would like to blow us clear out of the world. We know that Iran wants to drive Israel into the sea with nuclear. So David, you're on. Do we have reason to be concerned about that?
Yeah, I did some research over the last few days. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So over the last few days, I've done some research. I'm not an expert on this, but
I'm not hearing you, Michael.
I can hear you guys fine. Can y'all hear me?
David, Michael is asking you to hold on because he's trying to get the television thing lined up.
I think it's because Grandpa Rennie's hooked up to a mic.
I see. Okay. So.
Good, that TV is on, but now, by the time David is done addressing us on this nuclear thing, any of you have comments on it? Like, do we have to concern ourselves any with it or not? I might mention there's some scriptures in the Bible that are pretty serious about tribulation and bad, hard times. So don't forget all that as we're talking.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sharing a map. Do y'all see this map?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit slow and deliberate here. Russia has nuclear weapons that range from extremely small nuclear weapon that is much smaller than Hiroshima, all the way to much larger than what we have. And the idea is that Russia is more likely to detonate small strategic nuclear weapons than we might realize. But they would be against Ukraine or maybe one of our NATO allies in Europe. And they're way less likely to let it go all the way up to intercontinental level. However, so there's really two categories. One is America has eliminated most of our, if not all of our really small nukes, our strategic nukes, our tactical nukes. Those are essentially eliminated in our arsenal, but Russia's got them all. So I think this little thing here is what y'all see, this website that I have. It's called Nuke Map, and you can Google it. It's called nuclearsecrecy.com, or you just type nuclear simulation. It's very interesting because what you can do is right now we're in Provo. You guys are in San Antonio. So I'm going to type San Antonio. You can simulate a nuclear bomb in San Antonio. Okay. So this is, it's finding San Antonio, and then you get to pick the size of the nuclear weapon. Okay. Now, if anything were to go to San Antonio, it'd probably be a large one because it's intercontinental, it's big, and it would be probably from where I'm at right now onward. So I'm going to start with the most powerful nuclear weapon that Russia has, the Tsar Bomba, largest, it's 100 megatons. And we're going to go ahead and put it on the surface in San Antonio on the Alamo and detonate it. Okay. So there we see the blast. Okay. So the radiation radius is 7 kilometers. Okay. So the green part is where you see everything is vaporized instantly. Okay. And that goes almost to the 410 loop, as you can tell. So there's nothing that remains inside the green. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out again. This is just to realize that you can make it a whole lot smaller and it barely nukes one block. You'd be surprised if I did the exact same detonation the size of Hiroshima. Okay. So we go up to Little Boy, which is Hiroshima. Okay. Or Hiroshima. We detonate that thing, and its blast is so small, it barely covers a few blocks in downtown San Antonio. Okay, so it covers where, the Alamo and just a few blocks around. So the difference between the Hiroshima bomb that we've all talked about that kills so many people and the size of the megaton bomb that we have today is so big. It's 100-fold. Okay. So we're going to include radioactive effects and casualties in our count. And we're going to go back to the big daddy. Okay. So now you see the same bomb, and the casualties are 1.1 million. And then the injuries are 500,000. Now, what's interesting here is there's actually hope for us, even if this were to happen, and it's not going to happen. This is not going to happen, most likely, but there is a tiny chance that something like this happens in our lifetime. And you'll see Castle Hills. So even Castle Hills is where our law firm building is. It's outside of the radius of the fireball. You go to Bulverde up here where we live, in this area here, you definitely have the radioactive effects, but the radioactive effects go all the way through Arkansas.
Hey, David,
So some of you guys,
David, can you hear me? No?
yes,
Can you maximize that web page? It's, I don't know if you can, but we're working on a small screen here.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, now we're talking.
Okay. So it goes all the way to Arkansas, and the obligatory joke is, well, will some of those radiation correct some of the inbreeding that occurred in Arkansas anyway? And I'm just kidding. Those are our ancestors, and those are ourselves, East Texas. The real thing is radiation is what we're trying to protect ourselves from. Radiation is the killer, right? So as you can tell, even if the biggest bomb in the world were dropped in downtown San Antonio, it would be radiation that would get us. It would also get all the people in Tyler, Texas, Austin, Texas, Arkansas, and even all the way up to Indiana. So that the way that this happens is interesting, because nuclear fallout is not something that we know much about easily. So I'm going to show a short video, and then I will be done, and we can have visits afterwards. So this is going to be the most helpful thing that we know, is that what would happen in the unlikely event that a nuclear bomb were dropped near where we live. the most likely event is that we would be impacted by the radioactive fallout more than anything else. And that's, so I'm going to show a video about that. Okay. It's an 8-minute video and it's very informative.
David, is there a reason why it blows the radioactive fallout to the 2 o'clock position?
That's the people who wrote up the website takes into consideration the high winds that blow, because the dust that comes from, so when the bomb is coming from the ground, hits the soil, the soil and all the debris, it becomes radioactive, but mushroom cloud pushes it up higher than the normal winds above the clouds, and it remains above there, and it follows wind patterns, and it's expected to go northeast.
The rotation of the earth, it's wind.
Yes, it's a good question. And that, so here is, I think this one is the one. And so I'm going to make sure that I can share this with you guys. And my family here is going to watch it too. So here we go one more time to make sure my share is correct. Let's see, we got this right. So it's going to be share sound.
The full scope of a nuclear detonation is almost unimaginable. Hopefully, no one will ever experience another of these catastrophic incidents. But there is a scientifically supported plan of action that could save hundreds of thousands of lives in the area surrounding a nuclear explosion. So what is this plan, and what exactly would it protect us from? To create their destructive blast, these weapons harness the power of nuclear fission, in which an atom's nucleus is split in two. This process produces an incredible amount of energy, and in some materials, the neutrons produced by one fission are absorbed by nearby atoms, splitting additional nuclei. These chain reactions can produce a range of explosive yields, but let's consider an explosion equivalent to 10,000 tons of TNT. An explosion like this would create a fireball capable of decimating a few city blocks and a shockwave damaging buildings several kilometers away. There is tragically nothing that can be done to save those in the fireball's radius. However, for those in the shockwave and beyond, our scientifically supported protocol could be life-saving. And though it may sound surprising, the best way to stay protected before, during, and after a nuclear detonation is getting inside. Similar to protecting yourself from tornadoes or hurricanes, getting and staying inside a sturdy building would offer protection from the explosion's shockwave, heat, and radiation. The shockwave of energy would travel several kilometers beyond the fireball's radius in the first few seconds. Sturdy buildings within that range should be able to withstand the shockwave, and staying in the centers and basements of these buildings also helps provide protection from heat and flying objects. Finding shelter is especially important if the fireball occurs close to the Earth, as it will pull thousands of tons of dirt and debris several kilometers into the atmosphere. As the fireball cools, unstable atoms created by the nuclear fission mix with the debris to produce the most dangerous long-term effect of a nuclear detonation: radioactive particles called fallout. These sand-sized particles emit ionizing radiation, capable of separating electrons from molecules and atoms. Exposure to massive amounts of this radiation can result in cell damage, radiation burns, radiation sickness, cancer, and even death. Created several kilometers up, dangerous concentrations of this material would be driven by upper atmospheric winds, potentially leading to hazardous levels of fallout in areas up to tens of kilometers downwind. Thankfully, the same buildings that offer protection from the blast are even better at guarding against fallout. Radiation is reduced as it travels through space and mass. So while a broken window and sealed window both have the same minimal effect on radiation, thick layers of steel, concrete, and packed earth can offer serious protection. And since fallout gives off half of its energy in the first hour and 80% in the first day, staying inside for 24 hours could dramatically improve the odds of avoiding the most serious effects of radiation. Following the blast, there would be at least 15 minutes to find shelter before the fallout begins. Since the most hazardous fallout particles are the heaviest, they sink through the air and collect on streets and rooftops, making ideal shelters underground or in the middle of high-rise buildings. But if someone were to get caught in the fallout, there are still measures they could take. After finding a safe space, they should remove their shoes and outer layers, wash any exposed skin, and store the contaminated clothing far away. Once inside, plan on staying there for at least 24 hours. If the shelter is poor or someone inside needs urgent medical attention, try seeking outside help after an hour. But ideally, stay inside and stay tuned for more information from first responders. While electric power, cell service, and internet would be down, most radios would likely survive. So listen in for emergency responders to determine the safest course forward. Nuclear weapons are some of the most powerful tools of destruction on Earth, and it may seem naive to put faith in these straightforward protective measures. But studies and simulations have repeatedly shown the benefits of getting inside. So while we'll hopefully never need to, remember to get inside, and stay tuned. When it comes to nuclear war, humanity has had some near misses. In this episode on the Cuban Missile Crisis, you'll learn how careful diplomacy and one man's courage prevented an international catastrophe.
Okay, thank you so much. What was it? How many minutes do you have? Anybody remember? 15 minutes? That's right. You've got 15 minutes, and that nuclear fallout comes, the first hour is the most damaging. And after the first day, 80% of it is gone. It's that radioactive decay that you learned about. So your first day is the most important. So that's that was very valuable, I think, to me, and I wanted to pass it along. And I will put those two websites on Dad's document.
Okay, David, can you hear me, David?
I sure can.
Okay, the name of our whole program tonight is Circumstances of Concern and What Shall We Do? And it was very well explained there what we can do if this should happen. So now I ask all of us here, is there even a little concern or threat about this subject? I asked, has there ever been in the history of the world a weapon that was not used over and over and over again? Is there a threat that this could happen to us, David?
Yeah, from what I can tell, it's not as bad as it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it's probably bad as it was during the Cold War in general right now.
Anybody here have an idea as could this ever happen? Go ahead.
Maybe one of the most likely scenarios would be it happening by accident. They've actually looked from the end of World War II until now, the most common times it happened were just accidents. People made mistakes. And which is why one of the other ways that people can help prepare for this is to consider donating to political advocacy groups that try to use political means to reduce the nuclear armament of countries. One of the most prominent ones is called Plowshares.
Thank you.
Been very successful.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the world that's is there anybody in the world that's angry enough that they would want to do it? Who? Who else? North Korea keeps threatening us. Iran keeps threatening Israel to send them back into the sea. Okay, Randolph Air Force Base here in San Antonio. Is it big enough to be a target? I don't know.
There's 5 military bases in San Antonio.
Wow.
Randolph.
So is San Antonio a target? Could San Antonio be a target? I heard on the TV on a documentary on this, Houston, Washington DC and New York, and I think Houston on account of the oil and chemical industry. And I don't know about San Antonio. Anybody in the Houston area have an idea or comments on this? Okay. I'm about finished with this. I'm just about finished with this, but I do recall the statement from Elder Bruce R. McConkie, who was one of the leaders in the church many years ago, who spoke of a, quote, nuclear holocaust and used the phrase, which shall surely come. All right.
I have a question. Nuclear fission is what they talked about, David. What about the bigger bomb, nuclear fusion, which I think you have to have a fission bomb to start a fusion bomb, but the hydrogen bomb is a fusion bomb, which is a lot more powerful. Are we talking about if there's a blast with a hydrogen bomb, nuclear fusion, but the fission, which is more radioactive, I don't know if it's more radioactive, but I think it is, that's what creates the nuclear fallout? Or is there an additional amount of nuclear fallout from a bigger bomb like a hydrogen bomb?
So from everything that I can tell, that the simulator, it shows how much nuclear fallout would be according to the size of the bomb, and all of the bigger ones are nuclear fusions, hydrogen bombs. I think it takes that into consideration. Also, I got to point this out that there's a few countries like Pakistan and India that have nuclear bombs, and people have talked about the possibility that if they entered into a nuclear exchange, that even though it was the other side of the world, it would have impacts on us. If it went very long, it could cause a famine that could, just between those two nations, that could cause a little bit of a nuclear winter. Like it would
David,
cause
that brings
famine.
that brings us, David, to that follow-up subject, nuclear winter. What is it? And could it
Let me
impact
kind of
us?
explain that. So independent of the fallout, because the fallout is what causes the radiation poisoning, which you can mostly get out of if you stay indoors. But independent of that, the smoke literally goes higher than all the winds, and it stays several miles above and remains there for years. And if there were enough bombs detonated just between two, like let's say NATO and Russia, or Pakistan and India, okay? And just using those smaller bombs, if like 10 bombs went off, smaller, it still could kill as many as 1 billion people on the planet just because of the nuclear winter. Probably wouldn't hurt us as bad because we have food reserves, but it would, like, we're talking hundreds of millions would die, because what would happen is you would have extremely cold summers, and even like 5 or 10 degrees colder could impact on the farmers, the amount of agriculture. And we only, supposedly, according to some studies, we only have 60 days supply without continuing to refurbish our food supplies. So people after the first year would probably start to starve. And so food supplies become relevant to us but it would have to take a lot of, like 10 or more nuclear bombs before it creates a nuclear winter, even a small one. And then of course,
Thanks a
the
lot,
big
David.
nuclear winter. Okay.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next subject and not take quite so much time on it. And David, stay on, because I think you may have some input, but I need some input on this because I don't know almost anything about it. Number two, cyber attack. So who wants to tell us what a cyber attack is? Will it affect the grid? And what, if anything, it'll do to us? Who wants to address us on that? If somebody doesn't speak up, I'm going to ask David, because I think David knows a little bit about it. Somebody else know something about a cyber attack or an attack on the grid? Go ahead, Dustin.
Well, our world today is increasingly dependent upon technologies that are connected to the internet. And as a result of that, we are more and more vulnerable to some type of attack, shut down actions, or will hijack them for nefarious purposes. And we've already seen that. A major oil pipeline in the past few months was shut down, and it was a major hack. And I believe that was hackers from Russia that were doing that. And so there's definitely capabilities. And as we become more and more dependent on the internet,
What effect will it have on us here in this room?
well, a lot of like just everything you use in your everyday life.
Cell
Think of
phones?
something like food. How much of what you buy is done through something like Walmart or Amazon?
Yeah.
Well, those companies are basically, their advantage is built on being able to use the internet to share information widely. And if that gets shut down and they have to go back, they have to revert to the way supermarkets used to be done, they don't really have the infrastructure to do that.
Would it shut down our cell phones and our computers?
Yeah, you've got, right. So the computers, you have the risk of
Would
computers
it
being
shut down our automobiles?
Yep, because
Because they have chips.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so would you say just like have cash on hand? Because if they, I mean, I'm thinking grocery stores and you'd have to use cash, but maybe, I don't even know, like what, what do we do about that then? If, or do we got bigger problems? Uh-huh. Right, so there's no food. on
So
the
we
shelf.
come to the second part of the
Okay.
question, and that is, Stephen and anybody, what shall we do? Because Russia has already threatened us, so I heard on TV, with a cyber attack. So if it happens, and if they break through, like Dustin was saying, and they what do we do? We go back to,
So I guess that means you have to be, that
the
goes back to food
1700s?
storage, yeah.
we go back to the 1700s.
So cash is not gonna help you that much. You just have to be self-sufficient at that
Dan?
point, right?
Well, were you saying anything, no? All right.
I think one of the hardest things about it is that like all of the logistical planning that like all of the markets use are all digital, so that they don't have paper copies of the things that they need to know what goes where. So that would stop up everything so that, food would be difficult. It's hard to know what we can do about it though, because it's kind of up to the people who own those businesses to prepare themselves.
David or anybody here, what is the, is there a risk of it happening? Steve, do you know? Is there much of a risk that hackers or a big country, Russia, could just deliberately shut the grid down? They do. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, the law firm got
Demotion.
hacked. It shut them down for a little bit. But there's a guy in my ward who's like the head of IT security over USAA. It was kind of Carson's mentor. And he had some priests over, and he can't even talk about what he does very much. It's so high secret. Like I even asked what kind of computers he did, and then he kind of slipped and told me what operating systems he uses, and then he kind of shut up. He goes like, I can't be telling you this stuff. So it was really weird. And at one time he had his laptop open And he had a graphic representation of all the hackers across the world trying to hack into USAA. And it looked just like the 1984 movie War Games, when you had all these little missiles coming across the planet. And at any given point in time, there were about, I don't know, 30 to 50 hackers. About every 10 seconds, there's another hacker trying to tap into the USAA bank. And he said, we've changed from a insurance agency to an a security agency.
So if it should happen, I take it,
Yeah.
if it happened in a big, bad way, I take it that we would do as our grandparents did.
Uh-huh.
Just go back to milking cows and
Yeah.
riding bicycles.
So, I mean, it's like, what if a hacker attack comes? It's coming every 10 seconds. Like they're trying to hit every agency and they're trying to hit with a newer, later, a more, a tougher to beat security technology, and it's a race. And so they have competitions every few months. Everybody goes to USA, all the top college students in the nation, and they have the blue team and the red team, and the red team try to penetrate through, and you just fight fire with fire. You have to be a hacker to know how to defend the hackers. And it's just a technology race, constantly going all the time.
So,
And the people who win the tournament, they get the immediate job.
so if it happened, take you, Mark, if
Yeah.
it happened, you in your home, could you manage for a few months? You just go back to the old way, huh? That's it. I meant to tell y'all. You might see, if you watch religion shows, certain of them, they'll talk about doomsday and the meteor crashing against the earth and the humanity being destroyed. Doomsday will never come on a global scale, never. And the destruction of the human family will never come, because we know from the scriptures that God, Christ, and all that's going to preserve us. But doomsday could come locally, as it did to the Aztecs and the Incas. So it could come locally. So we have to watch out.
Bernie,
But
real
I-
quick. Bernie, can I just mention real quick? Right here,
What?
Bernie, right here. In the corner, right here. So I know we're talking more from a macro perspective on these cyber attacks, but I think it's equally important to focus on what can happen individually with these same cyber attacks.
Yeah.
I know in the government, they train us because oftentimes these attacks, they originate through individuals. So taking your personal precautions, whether it be turning off your computers, not giving out computer information to your church ward members, stuff like that, that can go a long ways.
Great. All right, we move on to another subject now. Well, that's the next subject. Okay, well, that is the very next subject. It's number 5 here. And there's been considerable talk about this. What is an economic collapse? I mean, specifically in detail, and how would it affect us, you and me, the bank? Am I correct in saying, because I'm certain I heard this on TV, a document that the government is, where are my words, has the ability, I don't know if they're exercising the ability to monitor your bank accounts. So what is an economic collapse? I mean, what does it entail? Somebody? Yeah. The Great Depression.
Just guessing. You tell us how it was when you were a little boy.
Of course, I was at the end of it, 1939. That's the very last year of it, really. But my folks went through it. Your grandfolks went through it. So, I mean, or let me ask it a different way. What effect would a really serious economic collapse have on you individually? Derek?
So a very recent event is what's going on in Russia right now. So that form of an economic collapse, they've been essentially cut off from the rest of the world. So they still have connections with China and India, but that is something that could happen to those around us, to us. And being cut off, well, the first thing that happens is your currency goes down.
How would that affect Derek and Esther in their home?
So the cash you have might not be able to buy very much. So one of the things you can do, it kind of goes back to the fundamentals, right? So food storage, maybe having other forms of currency, maybe other stores of value, if we want to get into that eventually.
Is there a chance that our paper money, the paper money we have, $100 bills will become pretty much valueless?
So the ruble lost, I think, 80% overnight, something like that, something crazy, once they got shut off. So if that were to happen, that would be bad.
We go back to the way it was with our great grandparents.
Right. So any hard assets, so your gold, silver, those things are still of value. So that would be something, but these are things that you.
The shelves may go bare, Stephen.
They either have money or they may have, no, the money's not going to be used anymore. And so, I mean, what are they going to use to replace the shelves or to pay the truck drivers?
Steve, what do you think the chances are that this could happen and it affect you?
It can happen. Believe it or not, I get a little nervous about that now.
I have relatives that have told us that in the next 2 or 3 years, our paper money will be worthless.
Well, I don't think it would happen if things are even keel, but I mean, if there's, big wars or something like that,
Yeah,
or if we get alienated from our
Yeah.
friend countries, then
then
that's
something.
usually.
I
what
wish my
would kick
brother
it in.
Bob Packard could address you on this subject, because he says, and he's no dummy on this sort of thing. He's a millionaire and really bright on this. And he said the time will come when we will be asked to take our paper money and turn it in, and we will get government money. And that means the government will be able to monitor it. And if they want to control it, they can, but they'll monitor it. They'll even know what you spend money on, because it'll be government money.
I
They'll know.
think they do that already. That's what I always assumed.
I happen to believe that they know what's in your bank account if they want to know it. And that they have that much.
I thought a few years ago, they passed some laws that that's what I understood.
That
They get to look and see what you check out at the library, and they get to see what you spend your money
See,
on.
this is scary. So if it got really bad, it could affect you and me personally and individually. All right, let's move on to the next one. Now, the next one is number 3, and it is a problem that can be facing us here and now. I'll give you a quick example. It's about theft, robberies, gangs, and it goes like this. My wife, Nancy, was walking down the sidewalk of a strip mall, and this car comes up right close to her, and this fellow leans out the window and hollers a curse and a threat to her. This was about 6 months ago. And a curse and a threat to her, total stranger. Why would he do that? There was no connection, just total strangers. But he leaned out and hollered this horrible thing to her. And it's because he was filled with anger. And that's happening across the country. I saw just 3 days ago on the internet, on the computer, on the TV, a documentary that they call it now follow home. Hello, folks. Hello, honey. Hello. Sit down, baby. They call it follow home robberies. Do you know what a follow home robbery is? They target you. They see, this was in Los Angeles. They see somebody coming out of a high class jewelry store, and they follow him or her. And they'll either stop them on the side, on the road at a stop sign, or go right to their house and they rob them. And it's been going on. It's said it's increasing rapidly. Well, you'll see in the news these smash and grab robberies, and bad things are happening. You've seen this on TV, they will go up and knock down a senior citizen for no good reason, not even to rob them, but just knock them down in gangs. Now, the latest one I saw on TV was, no, it wasn't. It was on my cell phone, the little bleep that said 17 active gangs in Los Angeles that target people and rob. So how are we doing? Are we okay? Are we safe? How do you, and then we come to this next, what shall we do to protect ourselves? Where's Priscilla? Sabrina, what, if you're coming out of Walmart at night, what, is there something you can do to protect yourself? Keys in hand? You have your keys in hand?
It's noteworthy. It's keyless entry, you know?
And do you, I suppose
I
you'd
mean,
look,
like, it's just in my purse.
I would hope you'd look around. I'd hope you look around, and if you see something that doesn't look so good, you
Yeah.
go
and
back
have
in the
Dustin
store.
on the phone while I'm walking if I get nervous. That's what I do. But I try not to go to Walmart at night very often,
Who
in
else?
general.
Anybody had any,
I have something that's not,
anybody had any bad experience? Go ahead, Michael.
well, it's not nearly as interesting. You got me? Not nearly as interesting, but it's more fact-based. And that if you want to be scared about that, you should be appropriately scared. And if that's the case, then you should, the most dangerous part about being robbed at Walmart is the driving to Walmart. That is by far the more dangerous thing that you're doing because of the car wrecks involved.
Yeah.
If you're worried about dying.
Anybody else, baby?
Dad, can you hear me? Dad,
Yes.
Michael, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. I'm giving you the spotlight. Elizabeth, we can hear you, but not see you anymore. You muted yourself and turned your.
Is that
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, can you see me?
Hi,
Oh, yeah.
Elizabeth.
Hey, just I had an interesting targeting experience once, and I learned a whole lot from it. But they're real smart. I was going paddleboarding, and I saw this guy sitting on the side of the street, just sitting there looking at his phone. He was sitting there with nothing to do, and I noticed it was unusual. But still, I went about my business. I grabbed my things. I had to inflate my paddleboard. It took me about 15 minutes to do so, walk down to the beach, and then I put my keys in a zipper inside my paddleboard bag. But what he did was he saw me getting out, and then he walked in front of me. He didn't even walk behind me. He walked in front of me to where I was going and watched me do that whole thing. And then he took the keys out of my bag and went into my car and robbed everything out of my car, including my wallet, my cell phone, my friend's cell phone, her purse, everything. Left the keys on the bench. And then he went his way. So he didn't hurt me, he just robbed me.
Wow. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a big threat
Predictable,
for,
vulnerable like that.
I don't know if we owe very much concern about this subject or not, but I will say, it seems to me like in the last 2 years especially, people are becoming angrier, more angry. Yes, ma'am.
So I grew up in an area, like, I didn't realize it until I was older, but I grew up in an area where like a lot of the people around me were in gangs. And I think the thing I learned most of all was that like the company that you keep makes a big difference in the kind of confrontations that you are a part of.
Yeah.
So if you're friends with people who are a part of gangs, and often they will make themselves known because there's like a badge of pride for them about it,
Yeah.
then most violence in gangs happens gang on gang. If you're not a part of it, you're a lot less likely
Yeah.
to get in the crosshairs.
I think if we use reasonable precautions, I think, hello, I think if we just use reasonable precautions, we can go, okay. The documentary I saw said an interesting line. In years ago, people got in conflict, turned into a fist fight. Today, it turns into guns. That's what he said, and there's some truth to it. We move on. Now, who can address this to number 9? And I don't know much about it, but it's called One World Government. And David spoke. Is David still on the line? Who? One World Government. What is it? And is it something that will come? And will it affect you and me?
I think our doctrine says that it will come, but hopefully that's the good kind.
See, that's what I thought. If it does come to one world government, if the chief, the captain, is a bad guy, like the one in North Korea, you know, Katie barred the door. But if it's Jesus Christ, no, you know, no problem. So, I mean,
I'll vote for him.
are we tell me, are we facing, who knows, a one world government? Yep. Yeah.
250 years ago, every colony turned into a sovereign state and they were barely friends, and
Yeah.
only for a while. And then they became enemies. And now they're friends again. Well, now that's kind of going, I don't know. I just see in a gradual and generally speaking in a good way, that the nations of the world are learning how to get along better, generally speaking.
That's encouraging.
But I don't know. The only way I could see a one world government coming against everybody's wishes would be for someone rogue nation to
David,
take over.
David, if you're still on, you and I spoke of this, and I told you, David, that Nancy and I saw a documentary the other day, about a week ago, with Glenn Beck coming on, and Glenn Beck told us of a council meeting in Dubai, the country of Dubai, that has the Dubai Tower, the highest, tallest tower in the world. And that this council consisted of quite a large number of very significant people, bankers and scientists, and that their meeting was to promote a one world government. That's what it was all about. Did you find anything on that or not, David?
Yeah, I posted this documentary. Let's see. It's on the very sheet of paper. So if you want, I just play a little bit, just a very tiny bit, and then y'all can find it yourself. I'll play about 15 seconds of it.
Is it from Glenn Beck?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And so this is straight from the link that is on your program. Okay. And let's see.
Well,
y'all see that?
Okay, go ahead. Listen up.
To what is happening around us. I told you a minute ago, the World Government Summit. The what? The World.
Okay, that was it. Y'all have that link, but that's the documentary that I think Dad's referring to.
And I get the feeling from, I don't know why, that it's not a good thing. Because if the wrong person, like just say Putin, was the chief, we'd be in trouble. Or the leader of China, Xing or whatever his name is, we'd be in trouble. It'd take our religious freedoms away and other freedoms. Anything else on one world government? We're all going to cover just one or two more. All right, transportation, gasoline, using trikes and bicycles. Are we okay? I mean, will we have fuel from now on?
I don't think so. I think you better get in shape to pedal your bicycles.
Anything else?
Enjoy it while you can.
Because it's going to run out and it's going to get shut down. I was thinking about solar bicycles.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
The reason I say that, Dad, is because I think that the trucking thing will be blocked. The pumps will go empty because there'll be a trucker strike of some sort, and
yeah.
we're going to have to go a period of time without fuel.
Wow. Look, we may close with this and then I just open it for anything anybody else wants to say on any subject. Um, Well, I wanted to, okay. And that is number 4, drought, famine. Um, I mean, the drought and the famine has hit various parts of the world many times over history, including right now in some parts of the world where people are starving plumb to death. So could it happen here? And if so, what do we do? Well, we've already covered part of it, item number 1, food and water. But put it this way, as I understand it, drought is hitting pretty hard in some of the western states. Is that right? And I mean, could it get worse and affect us personally? Daniel, what do you think? So what do? I guess we go back to square one and do like our great grandparents did. Start raising chickens. Well,
Dig a well.
I think
Water
I
purifier.
think we could start by trying to pay off your house, do things like that. You know, and don't worry too much. Just prepare. You know, that's my thought on it. At least, you know, we can't be ruled by fear, but we can be smart.
that's it.
I was just saying, it's
Yes,
funny
Rick?
because we said we weren't going to have a discussion on food storage, but the one thing I'm getting out of this is I need to get some, make sure I have food storage, or, you know, just be, and maybe not forever, but like at least 3 months supply and. you
Well,
know.
get your husbands and your brothers to get your
Food
husbands
storage.
and your brothers, listen to this, get your husbands, your brothers to rent a truck, come up to our place. And they'll have enough to last for 2 years. I want to close with this and then I just leave it open for you to talk about anything you want to. Number 11 there, and I really don't want to go into this much. I just, because it could get too personal. Number 11, the rapid change in the American culture. It's almost unbelievable how our culture has changed in the last 2, 3, 4 years, 10 years. When I was a youngster, no. Well, let me say it this way. 1939, the year I was born, the movie Gone with the Wind came out. And the very first word ever cursed or used on the screen was used in that film, wherein Clark Gable said to the pretty lady, "Frankly, madam, I don't give a damn." And that was it. And it shocked the American public because I saw it later on, you know, when I was a teenager. And it shocked the American public. I heard that they used a curse word on the big screen. And in that day, I think even in Ozzy and what's their husband name? Harriet. Husband and wife. It was a bedroom scene, so to speak. He's in one bed, his wife is in a different bed. I mean, that was the culture. They don't show them in the same bed. That'd be too immoral. So that was the guy, and how it has changed today. So I'm just saying there has been such a drastic change in our morals. So what do we do about that? Well, the next line, there has been a rapid decline in the moral standards in the Western world. And that is such a decline that we don't even want to get into detail on it. So all I'm saying on that is each of you with your own family review the moral standard in America compared with the way it relates to your family and what you want your family, you want your family to be raised and the standards, you know what's right and wrong. In your mind, there should not be any blur between the right and the wrong as there is in the world today. And so we're all going to meet our maker not too long from now, and our kinfolk that have predeceased us. And we'd like our families to be morally healthy. So you all exercise your own wisdom and judgment. And did I leave anything out on that, Nancy? Yeah, because it's a real. I left a lot of things out. It's a real personal thing, but you all take care of your family. Incidentally, she does remind me of one thing. We don't want to be judgmental of anybody. She reminds me and she showed me a picture, the big circle representing a person's life. And this person may be a person that's troubled. And then a little teeny tiny dot. And what does that dot represent? Yeah, that dot represents what we know about that person, which is almost zero. Therefore, we don't be judgmental. She reminds me that life is kind of like a person's life, whether they're in good shape or troubled, is like a great big iceberg. And we only see the very tip of the iceberg. We don't see the whole thing. Therefore, we don't want to be judgmental about it. Well,
The only thing I don't want to say too much, but I believe that if a person is struggling in any way, emotionally, physically, morally, any kind of struggle, that our job is to love them unconditionally. Now, that's what I think.
she reminds me of another important principle that I never thought of until she reminded me of it about a year ago, that it just may be, listen up, everybody, it just may be that our Heavenly Father, hello, it just may be that our Heavenly Father sent a certain individual to our home that's very troubled to teach us something and to give us a chance to help them.
I want to say,
It may be that our Heavenly Father deliberately sent somebody to our home that's troubled, because we've had our issues. Nancy and I have had our plenty of issues. And my mom and daddy, Forrest and Esther Packard, who raised a very marvelous family, every one of their children, including me, without exception, has had their issues with their children and grandchildren. That's it. That's it. We only see, so a very little interesting thing. When I was young, even before I was ever married, I took notice that my older brothers and sisters would ask each other about their kiddos and how they're doing. And mine is an Eagle Scout, and mine is a deacon now, and this one's going to go on a mission. Then as the years went by, they quit asking each other. Do you know why they quit asking each other? Because they knew they was going to be asked about theirs. I'm telling you the truth. They quit asking each other about your kiddos for fear of the question coming back.
It turns out they're all about the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
the answer
My
became,
mom and daddy, believe my mom and daddy raised a great family, but I imagine they've turned over in the grave a few times.
I want to mention there's two types of judgment.
Hey, I have a 15-second, oh, sorry, Sabrina, a 15-second comment. I don't know how much we can do about all these risks, and they're real. But one thing we can do is stick together. We've got something a lot of people don't have, which is we have each other. And we can make it just about anything if we do that.
That's right. We support each other. We sure do. Okay.
I love what Dan just said. Can I just say something real quick?
Anything else? I'm done. I'm done.
I have the microphone. I'm having a hard time getting the floor. So I would say we've always been taught not to be judgmental, and that's important. Scriptures say, "Judge not, that ye be not judges," and so forth. Casting judgment upon somebody, not knowing the rest of the iceberg, is not only evil, but it's stupid. You don't even. It's just so stupid to try to judge something that you don't even understand. Yet there is a form of judgment that we should exercise, which is more akin to wisdom. If somebody knocks on your door like they knocked on our door a few years ago and sticks a gun in your face, it is not the time to say, well, we don't want to judge you. Okay? You run for your life. If somebody is dressed up in red tennis shoes, red ball cap, and pants halfway hanging down, and it could be any race, it could be any age, but if they go up and they say, "Come over here, I want to show you something," you have a right to be judgmental in the sense like you love that person in your heart, you wish the best for them, but by golly, get out of there.
Yeah.
You can judge the situation and judge in wisdom, and be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove.
Yep.
So judgment we got that mixed up in our family, in the past. We got it mixed up that you shouldn't be judgmental to people, and we at times had invited in harm when we could have avoided it. And there's a fine line between, well, where do you not pick up the snake, which after you get bitten, it says you always knew I was a snake.
Yeah, that's right.
You can love it, but don't poke
You
it.
know, the word judgmental could be changed to condemn. We don't condemn. Yeah. That's right. We leave condemnation.
She said, judgment should be separated into different categories. There's condemn, but there's also evaluate. And when you're evaluating correctly, like when you're dating, you should always be judgmental, but that's the wrong word. You should evaluate, and you should be, yes. And I don't know if evaluate, yes, you don't have to change your actions, but don't make bad decision and hide behind saying, I don't want to be judgmental. Make good decisions, just change your vocabulary.
Right.
And you teenagers, you young people, this is a stage where you should be evaluating more than ever. And you can always say, bless her heart. And, I wish the best for you, as Dan said, as you decide not to make that a part of your life if it's not good for you. All right.
I wanted Elizabeth in California. Are you still on, honey?
Yeah, I've been listening.
Okay, on any of the subjects that's been discussed this evening, we don't want to leave you out. So do you have anything you want to share? Turn it around so they can see.
Well, I did have a couple questions. So I guess I'm addressing David with the nuclear fallout. Real quickly, does that affect water that's exposed? Like your water outside and stuff? Is that all of a sudden radioactive? And then also, what about the soil? What if you wanted to grow something? Could you grow it in that soil?
Michael, what did she ask?
I don't, the question is what about water? What about the soil and the radioactive fallout? I don't know the answer. Here, one thing I do know is that the tiny particles that go into the air from the blast, that's what's radioactive. And whenever it comes back down and 15 minutes later, between 15 minutes later and a day later, that is the radioactive fallout that is most dangerous. When nuclear power plants leak and stuff like that, you'll have a completely different set of problems. So beyond that, I don't know. I don't know how long the soil and the water remain contaminated. I know that the rate of radioactive decay has a half-life that's very fast. It's a very fast half-life. So after, like you said, after one day, 80% of it has diminished, 80% after 24 hours. So my hunch is that you can grow crops afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I want to come right here, and then Elizabeth will come back to you. But here, go ahead.
So about the soil thing, I actually watched a video relating to that. And in it, it's specifically saying that what you simply not need to do is just scrape the topsoil off, being careful. And then all the soil underneath that, you can grow crops. Because if you do grow crops on that topsoil, all the radioactive stuff that's on the topsoil will just go into the plants.
I got you.
And
You're
so
right.
that's what I heard about with soil.
What else, Elizabeth? What else?
Okay. Last thing I was going to say is more of like kind of what like Dan was saying. I really feel hopeful. The same people that invented this atom bomb, the same people that invented these horrible things, well, that's us. We're brilliant enough to come up with creative ways, and our collective wisdom, we'll work together and we'll be okay. We'll today in the BYU graduation speech, which was brilliant, he says study after study after study shows that a huge group of very like-minded people are not nearly as wise as a huge group of very diverse minds, and the collective wisdom is brilliant. And so we'll be okay if we hang in there together. That's it.
Anything anybody else? Anything anybody else?
Hey, I want to point out that we're all here in Utah and we love you guys and so glad that you invited us. And I echo what Dan and Stan were saying about we feel support when we are together.
Thank you,
I
David.
did, yes, David, I did want to just say this. You parents, all of you, you folks either have children from kindergarten to 12 years old, to 12th grade, or in college, or both. Do you feel any concern about what your kiddos are being taught in K through 12 or in college, and the impressions and influence they get from other students? Is there any concern? I hear it on TV, on documentaries, what's being taught. But do we have reason to be concerned about what our kids are being taught and influence from others, or are we okay?
Teaching schools, we're lucky with
Derek, again, louder.
So to answer your question, Bernie, yes, we should be concerned. In Texas, we are fairly, I'll use the word conservative in school systems. However, the younger generation, they are facing some very, I guess what I'll call mature topics at very young ages. And so I think it's important to, as parents, to stay on top of those things, regardless of your stance.
Or you've got some young kids in school. How about in college? We got some out here that's got kids in college.
To not trust information without learning how to correctly evaluate it, and that in an age of polarized, that they can't just read something and assume it's true at all. And to everything they read, they need to read different opinions and learn how to discern the difference, to discern. And it takes a long time. I don't know the answer, but Jeff used to tell them, don't watch just one news channel. You have to watch the opposite view. Try to always expose yourself to differing opinions so that you can get an idea of the whole story. And then good luck to all of us finding out what's true. But don't be gullible. Don't be so quick to believe, and don't become polarized. If you're an extreme on either end, you're probably wrong.
Well, we're still in
the information bias. Well, once you have an opinion, you want to keep reading things that support what you already believe. And so most of your evaluation occurs in that first decision making. And then you go, it's sort of like when you're checking your test, you then are going over to convince yourself that your first answer was right. You're not using the same mental process. So confirmation bias, we like to read things that support what we already believe. And we all do it. We do it naturally. We don't even mean to do it. We don't realize we're doing it.
We're still, Texas is still a conservative state, but Elizabeth, I'm told that the word is out. Californians can come, but don't Californianize Texas.
Yeah.
Yes,
So what do you
that's.
think?
I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry.
They can all go to Austin. That's what Texans say. They go to
That's
Austin.
right.
Oh, and on the confirmation bias, the other thing is Facebook, Instagram, social media knows how to do the same thing, which is they see what you research, they see what you like, and they just feed you more of the same thing. So it creates a cycle where you live in this bubble of information that's all one view and you don't even realize it. Yeah. So just be smart and make sure you have you just be careful before you develop really strong beliefs. Just be careful, be cautious. Yeah. Well, you shouldn't read. Oh, you should. Okay.
I'm about to turn it back over to Samuel. Anything else anybody wants to share about any of those subjects or new subjects? Dallin?
Okay. Yeah, just a little personal experience. No, I took a few college law classes that were over very interesting topics that did align with my political beliefs, but it was still something that I was aware of. Like, it seems very one-sided. The education I'm getting at this incredible college, this law school, I felt like I wasn't able to get often both sides of the opinion. which was disappointing because I already know what I think, but I would like to be exposed to both sides. So it is present even at top schools all across the nation.
Who else?
So one thing that I found really helpful is to include hope in all this. Because Yoda, I think he was onto something when he said fear leads to anger, leads to hatred, leads to the dark side. Now I've gotten some of those confused, but Yoda was onto something. And so if you add hope and you add love and you add trust and all of this stuff, then you can take all this information, this data that's coming in, and instead of living shackled with a fear or hamstrung by fear, because fear really does cut off a lot of opportunities for good. But you take that information and you use that and sprinkle in the hope and the love, then you can make wise decisions with the data instead of making decisions reactionary based off of fear.
But I will say, one of my favorite phrases that I learned in the Packard family is, as it relates to people that you know very well and people whose decisions that you see very often and choices they make, we just judge, right? Or excuse me, we don't judge, we just enjoy. That's one of my favorite Packard phrases. We don't judge, we just enjoy. All right. Did anybody else want to share some words of wisdom before we close up? Okay.
On the fear. I had a lot of patients who was really, really freaked out about COVID. They would come into the clinic. This is early on before the vaccines and all. And it finally got to the point where I like, okay, the risk of something bad happen to you is a lot greater from driving here, than you getting COVID or this other thing. And so I said, we can take precautions. I mean, you wear your mask, you take your vaccines, you do these things, but we're also afraid of it because it's new and we don't know much about it. I said, did you wear your seatbelt on the way up here? Because it's very likely you would have died on the way up here. That's way more likely. Were you afraid as you grabbed your seatbelt and you put it over, I'm going to die, I'm going to die? I said, no, you didn't think about it because it's a known risk. It's a calculated risk. So we can wear our seatbelts and not be afraid at the same time.
Marshall. Okay, I'm gonna have to quote that one. I may want to write that down. Okay. No, I'm guessing after that, there's nobody else that wants to share words of wisdom. No. Anyone over here? I'm afraid. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Just a couple of shout outs. Did we lose everyone on TV or this is it? All of the
No,
Zoomers
we're
left?
still here.
We're here. We are here.
We're here.
I am here.
We are here. We are here.
Well, I did want a couple of shout outs before I close up. Number one, I guess, would be to all the people that are participating by Zoom. That's quite impressive. It's a huge show of love and support to be a part of this. And everyone, Stephen drove all the way over and Pam drove all the way over here. It's a long drive. Rebecca and you guys, y'all drove all the way over here. It's a long drive. Esther did a little bit over there too. Come on, round of applause. It is really cool. It shows a lot about, in a way that's kind of a message in of itself. Here's another one I wanted to say. Sabrina just wrote a new poem. You may want to check it out sometime. Another time. By the way, I couldn't help it. It did give me chills. This girl's got writing skills. Just saying. Okay. All right. A little shout out for Dan. I was only supposed to go and set up a video or something. I can't even remember what I was supposed to do initially, but I couldn't help it. But I stayed this entire week. It's been very fascinating. On the second day, I came back and told the judge, I got back to the office and I started checking some emails and I thought, what am I doing? Like there's a medical malpractice case going on over there. My brother Dan is dominating. And the judge says, I was wondering when you were going to come back. So he has done wonders today. He just basically made the defense counsel shaking his boots. He is the medical malpractice professor in San Antonio, and Dan's got him on the ropes. So round of applause right there. Okay. The jury's still out, but Dan is definitely winning as far as between the two attorneys. If that was we're all very tired. Let's see. I did have Okay. I do also want to acknowledge that my dad, my hero as a kid, I told my dad once when I got off a mission, I said, Dad, you're my hero. And that's who I've been. Anytime someone comes up, who's your hero? I said, I know it sounds cliche, but it's Bernie Packard. He's the toughest man I know. But we appreciate you coming up here and making this happen, sharing your wisdom, and also sharing your loves. Okay, last one. Today is Amy Lynn's birthday, so we have to sing her happy birthday. Okay? And we're going to sing it. We're going to sing it San Antonio style. Michael, do you want to lead us on that? It's like a little bit of, you got to have a little bit of a Spanish accent. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Okay, and we're going to let Amy Lynn's posterity say the closing prayer, after which you stay as long as you like and play as many games as you like and just, you know, eat, drink, be merry.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank that we all got to come here. Thank that we got to have a good time. And thank that it's the weekend. And thank that we got to talk about church. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Okay, have fun.
We love y'all. Over and out. Bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love y'all. Bye. Hey, David, Emily.
Bye.
David, Emily, real quick. Hi. I miss you guys.
I love you, Elizabeth.
I
love you, Sarah.
Love you, Marshall. This is awesome.
No,
Thanks
you're
for,
awesome.
Thanks for making sure we came.
No, you're awesome.
No. It's you.
All right.
I love you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. It was so fun having you. Thanks, y'all.